My name is Caspian Ward, 28 years old. The restaurant was one of those places that didn't print prices, the kind that assumed, if you had to ask, you didn't belong. El Bernardine in Manhattan, sleek light, soft linen, waiters who could glide without sound. Mom's 60th, Rebecca had insisted on choosing the venue weeks ago on our family video call, somewhere elegant, somewhere worthy. What she meant was somewhere expensive enough to make me shrink. I wore the same navy blazer I'd had for 6 years. Around me, my family glittered in designer armor. Rebecca's Prada black sheath, Trevor's Tom Ford cufflinks and watch in a gleaming marriage. Mark's Hugo Boss suit cut tight around a chest he'd been training into a personality. I looked like a catalog leftover from 2018, which, to be fair, I was, an image I'd cultivated carefully for 7 years. "So, little brother," Rebecca said as the second bottle arrived, a Bordeaux Trevor ordered, with the solemnity of a treaty. "Still doing your internet thing?" The table paused, a familiar, rehearsed silence before she began the slow art of cutting. "Still doing that," I said. Mom leaned in, trying to help, her voice bright and thin. "Caspian runs a successful online business." Rebecca tilted her head, pity polished into something dazzling. "How much are you actually making from your little blog or whatever?" "It's not a blog," I said calmly. "It's an investment and venture capital firm." Trevor snorted into his glass. "A venture firm? That's adorable." He said it like a sommelier humming a note to detect flaws. "Danny here, sorry, Caspian, thinks he's running a VC shop out of a studio in Queens." Rebecca patted my hand in a way that transported me back to being 8 and anxious at a piano recital. "There's no shame in still figuring it out. You're what, 28? Most people your age are entry-level somewhere. Entrepreneurship is cute." "I'm 28, I said. "Right. So young," she murmured, and turned to perform magnanimity. "If you need help, Trevor and I could maybe get you an interview at my company. Something in operations. Assistant to a junior PM?" Rebecca had joined Neural Edge after Wharton and vaulted into VP of Business Development. She was now the family's favored case study in upward mobility. She lived in bullet points and keynote slides, in elevator pitches that could slice bread. Her smile gleamed like a hallmark of inevitability. She posted about disruption and scaling and being a woman who wins. Trevor leaned forward, enjoying himself. "Beck tells me you borrowed money for rent last year." In March, I'd taken $1,200 from Rebecca and paid it back in 2 weeks. I'd been reallocating capital and living deliberately lean. "I paid you back," I said. "Of course," Rebecca replied, tone syrupy with concern. "You're not irresponsible. You're just struggling. That's okay. The gig economy is rough." Mark entered on cue. "Dude, what's your 5-year plan? You can't do this internet thing forever." He needed me to know he was normal, stable, promotable. "You mean corporate America," I said. "Actual structure," he said. 401k, real world." I cut into my $75 sole and tasted salt that wasn't from the sea. Candlelight caught the edges of Rebecca's diamond bracelet in precise flares that felt like punctuation marks to her sentences. Mom's gaze moved between us, 1 part pride, 2 parts apology, a thin filament of worry stretched across her mouth. Her smile always begged the air to be nice. Once, a long time ago when I was 21, I'd heard her on the phone telling someone, "He's brilliant. I just wish they'd stop teasing him." She'd never repeated that line to me. Rebecca continued, "Real businesses scale, generate revenue, create wealth. Look at us. Trevor's a partner. Mark just made VP. I'm running BD at a unicorn." She gestured around the table like a prosecuting attorney. "We're building things." Trevor paused theatrically. "What exactly do you do again?" I said evenly, "I identify promising startups, provide capital for equity, and help them scale." Rebecca actually laughed, crystalline and cutting. "With what capital?" She looked at Mom. "Don't worry about contributing, Caspian. We've got the bill." That line did it. Not the mockery, not the condescension, not the offer of an assistant role delivered like charity. It was the casual assumption I could not afford to eat with my family. Under the table, I unlocked my phone and opened Signal, the encrypted chat I used for sensitive communication. The screen's glow painted the underside of the linen with a cold square of light. I typed, "Emergency liquidation. Neural edge. Complete withdrawal across entities. Timeline immediate." I tagged Sarah, portfolio, Patricia, finance, James, legal. The replies arrived with efficient urgency, each buzz a metronome for the beat of my pulse. Sarah, full exit, 152 m, across Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Sigma. Confirm? Me. Confirm. Execute now. Patricia. Disclosure will trigger. Board notified in TR 20 mins. Me. Proceed. James. Docs ready within the hour. I set the phone face down beside my water and watched a waiter torch the caramel on a creme brulee at another table, the sugar blistering into glass. The restaurant's media screen cycled through a slideshow of mom at different ages, childhood bike, graduation cap, grainy beach vacations. I had asked them to load those photos earlier, to toast her life. Everyone believed that was all I'd intended. The Bordeaux breathed, while Trevor performed expert commentary. Mark asked if I'd thought about learning to code for real. Rebecca told a story about closing an $8 million client and let the number sit between us like a designer handbag on a white sofa. Mom touched my elbow and whispered, "Are you happy?" I looked at her and didn't answer, which was its own answer. My phone pulsed. Sarah. Series A liquidation initiated. 47 mm processing. Patricia. Entity disclosures filed. Board notification sent. James. Series B withdrawal confirmed. 58 mm transferred. The bubbles rose in my water glass, like thoughts I hadn't decided to think yet. The room's sounds sharpened. Silver tines on porcelain, hushed laughter, the soft chime of cutlery being reset. I could hear my own breath. Rebecca's phone rang. She frowned when she saw the caller ID. Brad from the board. On a Saturday? Trevor lifted his glass. Answer it. Must be important. She stood and glided toward the entrance, one hand already smoothing her hair into crisis-proofed perfection. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's night shimmered, all glass and certainty. Mark tried to fill the silence with the language of advice. Look, just stability, benefits. It's not about pride, it's about planning. My phone buzzed again. Sarah. Series C liquidation complete, 47 million transferred. Total withdrawn, 152 million. Patricia. 3 Series D investors already pulling feelers. James. Legal confirms 0 remaining equity across all entities. I studied my reflection in the water, blurred, doubled. Somewhere in the reflection was a boy at a family table learning that approval could be withheld with a smile. Through the window, I saw Rebecca pacing on the sidewalk, one foot stabbing the ground with each syllable. Her free hand cut patterns in the air. Even from here, I watched her face drain from indignation to calculation to fear. Trevor's phone rang. Babe? He listened, color draining to match hers. That's impossible. There has to be a mistake. He was already standing. I'm coming out. He hurried to the entrance, his $200 haircut suddenly a helmet that didn't fit his head. Mark's phone lit up next. He answered with a forced laugh that snapped at once. Wait, slow down. Liquidation? What do you mean? Who? Mom's phone began buzzing, and she looked at it as if it had misbehaved. It's Rebecca calling me, but she's right there. She turned the screen toward me, like I might negotiate with gravity. Her eyes were wide, not with money, but with something older, fear of the family breaking in public. I lifted my glass and took a long drink of water, cold and clean. I could feel the decision settling in my bones, not hot with victory, but cool with clarity. 7 years wearing an old blazer in rooms that measured worth in threads. 7 years living small to see who saw me. 7 years of quiet notes on how power makes people talk. I set the glass down and listened to the restaurant breathe. Outside, Rebecca was gesturing toward the restaurant, then toward her phone, her mouth forming words that fogged the window. Trevor was all hands now. Hair, pockets, palms splayed, a man trying to catch falling plates. Mark ended his call and stared at me like I'd grown a second face. "Something's wrong with Rebecca's company," he said softly. "Some major investor just pulled out. Like, catastrophically." Mom's hand found my sleeve. "Caspian, do you know what's happening?" The slideshow on the screen changed to Mom at 25, wind in her hair on a pier, the world a yes. I tilted my head so I could see the entrance and the screen at the same time. The past framed in warm photos, the present hardening into glass. The room's warmth thinned, the table lies laughter had cooled and slid away. Phones were ringing all over now. A chorus, a siren, a new kind of music. Rebecca turned toward the door, eyes bright with panic, Trevor at her shoulder. I folded my napkin, laid it beside the untouched dessert, and waited for them to come back to the table, for the next breath to arrive, for the first crack to sound like truth. Rebecca burst back into the restaurant, her face pale beneath perfect foundation, mascara trembling at the edges. Trevor followed, phone still pressed to his ear, voice low and frantic. Mark half rose from his seat. "What's going on?" Rebecca's voice cracked. "Our largest investor just liquidated. $152 million. Gone. Just gone. The board is panicking. The CEO's flying back from Tokyo. This could destroy everything." Mom stood, her hands hovering midair. "Who would do that?" Rebecca swallowed hard. "Some group called Apex Capital Partners. We've never even met them." I looked down at my folded napkin. "Apex Capital Partners," I repeated quietly. "They were your anchor investor, right?" Rebecca nodded, tears glossing her eyes. "Since Series A, every round, they owned 22%, and now they're gone." Trevor scrolled through his phone with shaking hands. "It's all over Twitter. Someone leaked it. Neural Edge loses $152 million anchor investor, Series D in jeopardy." His voice was brittle with disbelief. This could kill the round. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. "Rebecca, are you saying your company might—" "I don't know," Rebecca said. "We were closing $200 million next month, but no one will touch us now. They'll think something's wrong." "Is something wrong?" I asked. "No, we're growing 40% year over year. We just signed 3 Fortune 500 clients. The tech's solid. We're profitable." Her voice wavered. "But in venture capital, perception is reality. If Apex thinks we're a bad bet, everyone will." Trevor was muttering into the phone again, calling investors, calling lawyers, trying to stop an avalanche that had already started rolling. Rebecca turned to me, desperate. "You know people in VC, right? Through your internet business? Can you call someone? Anyone? Maybe you know Apex?" I looked at her for a long moment, feeling the irony bloom, slow and bitter. "I don't need to call them," I said. "I am Apex." The table froze. Even the waiter stopped mid-step, tray suspended in air. Rebecca blinked. "What?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the Apex Capital Partners app, and tilted the screen toward her. Principal investor, Caspian Ward. Total assets under management, $680 million. Recent transactions, Neural Edge Incorporated, complete liquidation. Delta Ventures LLC, $47.2 million. Epsilon Holdings LP, $58.1 million. Zeta Capital Partners, $31.5 million. Sigma Equity Group, $15.2 million. Total, $152 million. Status, complete. Mark's jaw dropped. Trevor's face drained of color. Mom's hands trembled around her clutch. "That says your name," Rebecca whispered. "That's not possible. You asked me for rent money." "I borrowed Chon $200 to see if you'd lord it over me," I said softly. "You did." Trevor stared, dazed. "You have $680 million? Give or take. Crypto fluctuates." Rebecca's breath came uneven. "You've been funding my company for 4 years?" "Yes," I said. "Series A through Series C. Every bridge round. I was your largest investor." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to see if you valued me for who I am," I said. "Not what I own." Silence folded over the table like a heavy cloth. Only the sound of traffic outside broke it. Mom's eyes glistened. "Caspian, sweetheart, all these years." I nodded once. "I built Apex from the sale of my first startup. Sold it to Facebook when I was 21 for $18 million. Invested most of it into early-stage companies, crypto, AI platforms. Compounded until it became this. But I stayed quiet. I stayed small. I wanted to see who loved me when they thought I had nothing. Rebecca's lips trembled. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. You wanted a story where you were the success and I was the embarrassment. Trevor looked at his phone, the glow washing his face ghostly. Neural Edge stock is already down 18%. Investors are pulling out. You're destroying 200 jobs. I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm withdrawing from leadership that values optics over integrity. Rebecca shook her head violently. I was under pressure. Every quarter, every number, every board call. It's survival. I didn't mean to humiliate me, I said quietly. You meant to survive by climbing over anyone you could. Mark exhaled sharply. Holy hell, Caspian. You were our company's ghost king. Rebecca collapsed into a chair, hands gripping the edge like it might keep her afloat. Please, I can fix this. I'll apologize. I'll change. Mom spoke suddenly, voice trembling but firm. Rebecca, stop. You've been cruel to your brother for years. You humiliate him every time we sit at a table. Tonight, he finally had enough. Mom, not now. Yes, now, Mom snapped. You thought success gave you the right to measure his worth, but you measured wrong. Rebecca covered her face. I know. Her shoulders shook. I'm sorry. It was the same apology she always used. Quick, reflexive, meant to ease her guilt, not heal anything. Trevor leaned forward, desperate now. Be reasonable, Caspian. You're punishing everyone for one dinner conversation. 200 employees will lose their jobs if Neural Edge collapses. Then maybe Rebecca should have thought of them before she mocked the man funding their salaries, I said. Mom looked at me, pleading. You've made your point. Maybe you can still save them. I looked at Rebecca. She was shaking, mascara running in thin black streams. I don't want to destroy you, I said, but I won't fund arrogance anymore. Rebecca's phone vibrated again. She picked it up, eyes widening. Series D investors just withdrew another $60 million. She looked up at me like a drowning person spotting land that wouldn't let her ashore. You can't just please, Caspian. We'll lose everything. You lost something more important first, I said. Respect. Mom whispered, He's right. Rebecca's breath hitched, and she looked at me through a blur of tears. What do you want me to do? I took a deep breath. Learn. Remember this moment. Because the next person you dismiss might not wait 7 years to show you who they are. The restaurant was utterly silent. Only the hum of the refrigeration system, the low whisper of candle flames. I looked at my mother's trembling hands, at my sister's ruined mascara, at Trevor's silent disbelief. Then I reached for my wallet and laid cash on the table for my untouched dessert. Happy birthday, Mom, I said softly. I hope you finally see me. Mom's eyes filled. I always saw you, she whispered. I just didn't understand. Rebecca covered her face again. Please, just tell me how to fix it. I met her gaze one last time. You can't, I said, but maybe you can start something new. Then I stood, buttoned my old navy blazer, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Trevor's voice cracked through the silence. Rebecca, what have you done? Outside, the night pressed cold and sharp against my face. Manhattan glowed, restless and relentless. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, Series D collapse confirmed. 140 million withdrawn. CEO requesting emergency meeting. I watched the notification fade. Inside, through the glass, I saw my family frozen in disbelief around a table still gleaming with candlelight. I had waited 7 years for this quiet, brutal truth. And it didn't feel like victory. It felt like revelation. The next morning, the headlines broke across every tech feed. Neural Edge implodes after sudden investor exit. 152 AM. Withdrawal triggers panic in billion-dollar startup. The company's logo flashed on financial networks, commentators speculating about internal corruption or hidden losses. None of them understood that this collapse wasn't about numbers. It was about pride. My phone vibrated nonstop. Calls from venture friends, from journalists, even from rival investors sniffing around the wounded carcass. I ignored them all. Instead, I sat at my small desk in the Queen's apartment everyone thought I could barely afford, sipping cheap coffee and watching sunlight crawl across the walls. The place had always been my disguise, my invisibility cloak. Now it felt like armor I no longer needed. Mom called first. Her voice was soft, shaking. Caspian, sweetheart, are you all right? I'm fine, I said. How's Rebecca? She hasn't stopped crying. Trevor's trying to manage the press, but... A pause. Do you really have that much money? Yes. Silence. Then a faint, wounded laugh. I thought I raised you to be humble, but maybe I raised you to be silent instead. You raised me to survive, I said gently, and I did. I should have defended you, she whispered. All those years. I let them talk down to you because I thought keeping peace was better than speaking truth. You did what you knew, I said. It's okay. No, she said, voice thick. It's not. But thank you for not hating me. I closed my eyes. I never did. When I hung up, a message from Rebecca appeared. Please meet me. Just once. I need to talk. For a long time, I stared at the screen. Then I replied, no restaurant, no audience. She chose a small cafe near the river, far from Midtown Gloss. When I arrived, she was already there, face bare of makeup, hair pulled back, clutching a paper cup like it was penance. She stood when she saw me. Caspian, her voice cracked. Thank you for coming. I sat. You said you needed to talk. She nodded, eyes red-rimmed. The company's a disaster. The CEO's resigning. The board wants to restructure. We might survive, but barely. You'll recover, I said. You're smart. She shook her head. Not as smart as I thought. Silence settled between us. Finally, she said, I was cruel to you. I know that. But it wasn't because I hated you. It was because every time I looked at you, I saw someone free. You didn't need to prove anything to anyone, and that terrified me. Her honesty startled me. You could have just said that. I didn't know how, she said. I grew up believing love was earned through achievement. I thought if I kept performing, people would stay. She gave a small, bitter smile. Even you. Respect doesn't work like that, I said quietly. You can't buy it, and you can't bully it out of someone. She nodded, tears streaking down. I know now. I'm trying to fix what's left, not the company, the people. I owe them that. I studied her. There was something raw, stripped in her voice I'd never heard before. Then start by treating them better than you treated me. I will, she said. I promise. We sat in silence for a while, watching the water move under the bridge. The city's noise softened out here, replaced by wind and distant gulls. You're leaving New York? She asked. Yes, I said. I'm opening an office in Palo Alto. I want to build something tangible now. Mentor founders who were never given a chance. She smiled faintly. The underdogs. The underestimated, I corrected. People who remind me of who I used to be. She swallowed. Will you ever forgive me? I looked at her for a long moment. Forgiveness isn't a switch, Rebecca. It's a process. But this, talking, this is a start. She nodded, eyes glistening. Thank you. When I stood to leave, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded envelope. I wrote something, she said. A plan. For a new kind of culture at Neural Edge. No more ranking people by status or schools. Real mentorship, transparency, fair pay. I hesitated, then took it. That's a good beginning. I'm not asking for money, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. I tucked the envelope into my coat pocket. Then keep trying. Her smile trembled. Goodbye, Caspian. Goodbye, Rebecca. Outside, the wind carried the smell of rain. My phone buzzed. Messages from Sarah, Patricia, and James, waiting for approvals on new investments. 4 term sheets ready to deploy. I walked toward the subway, thumbed a quick reply. Proceed with all 4. Each company on the list was led by someone who'd been told no too many times. A janitor turned biotech founder. A community college dropout leading an AI startup. 3 women in renewable energy. A warehouse worker who built logistics algorithms after hours. They reminded me that potential hides best in plain sight. At the platform, a group of teenagers laughed loudly, phones in hand, whole lives ahead of them. I thought about how many people they'd have to prove wrong just to be heard. My train arrived, a rush of air and metal. I stepped inside, found a seat by the window. The city blurred past, glass, steel, rain. The phone vibrated again. It was Rebecca. One final message. Thank you for teaching me what I refused to learn. I stared at it for a long moment and then typed back. Don't thank me, just live differently. The train tunneled deeper underground, carrying me toward whatever came next. I thought about the boy I'd once been, the one mocked for his internet thing, the one who wore an old blazer to blend in, who wanted nothing more than to be seen without a price tag. He was gone now. In his place was someone quieter, stronger, still searching for something money couldn't buy. Outside, the rain hit the glass, turning the city lights into blurred constellations. Some people would call this revenge. I called it freedom. By the time my plane touched down in Palo Alto, dawn was just beginning to break. A slow spill of gold over the horizon, washing the tarmac in light. I watched it from my window seat, feeling something loosen inside me, like a knot finally giving way. I had spent years watching other people's skies, shrinking myself to fit beneath them. Now, for the first time, I had my own. Sarah met me at the terminal, tablet in hand, already running numbers. "Welcome home, boss," she said. "Don't call me that," I replied, smiling faintly. "Too late. The office lease is signed, and your name's on every document." I followed her outside. The air smelled cleaner here. Less ambition, more possibility. Patricia had found us a small workspace downtown, nothing flashy. Exposed brick, tall windows, sunlight that actually reached the floor. It reminded me of how Apex had started. 3 people, 1 table, and a stubborn belief that good ideas shouldn't die in the shadows. Inside, the walls were bare except for a single whiteboard. Sarah had already scrawled across it, "Next 5 years." I read the first line aloud. "Invest in builders, not actors." "Your words," she said. I nodded. "Keep them there." Patricia joined us with coffee and a smirk. "You're already trending again. Neural Edge stock down another 20% overnight. CEO resigned at dawn." I paused. "And Rebecca?" "She's not quoted anywhere," Patricia said. Silent. "Which might be the smartest move she's ever made." I let out a slow breath. "Good." James appeared on a video call, his tone brisk. 4 new investments finalized. The Underdog Group. You'll like this part. The biotech founder, he's been sleeping in his lab. Says this is his first real funding. "That's the kind of hunger I believe in," I said. He grinned. "That's what makes Apex different. You don't chase profits, you chase proof." Maybe, but even proof came with a price. After the call ended, I stood by the window overlooking the waking city. For the first time in a long time, I felt still. The noise of competition, the performance of success, it didn't reach this far. I thought about Rebecca, about our mother, about the long thread of silence between who we were and who we pretended to be. Mom texted mid-morning. "Dinner next Sunday? Just us? No fancy places. I'll cook." "I'll be there," I wrote back. Then she added, "Rebecca's been volunteering at a startup incubator for women founders. Says she's learning from the ground up." I read the line twice before replying, "Good. That's where real change begins." For hours, I buried myself in work, reviewing contracts, approving disbursements, talking through timelines. Yet behind every decision, there was a quiet pulse. Not vengeance, not pride, but purpose. I wasn't just investing in companies anymore. I was investing in redemption, the kind that doesn't make headlines. By late afternoon, sunlight spilled across the floor, warm and steady. Sarah leaned against the doorway. "You ever miss New York?" I thought of the restaurant, the candlelight reflecting off diamond bracelets, the way humiliation used to taste like salt. I thought of my mother's trembling apology, my sister's mascara streaks, the moment truth finally cut through noise. "No," I said softly, "but I miss who I thought I could be there." She nodded, understanding. "Well, you're here now. Start fresh." That night, I walked alone through the quiet streets. Palo Alto glowed differently, gentler, less theatrical. A group of students passed me, laughing, arguing about code. I caught fragments, funding, pitches, maybe next year. One of them carried the same kind of cheap backpack I used to drag everywhere. I smiled. When I reached my apartment, I opened my laptop and checked one last message. It was from Rebecca. No preamble, no apology, just a forwarded document titled New Company Charter. Inside were pages of reforms, mentorship programs, equity reviews, anonymous feedback systems. At the bottom, one sentence stood alone. "We will never measure worth by titles or clothes again." I read it twice, then I replied, "That's a good start. Keep going." Hours later, I stood by the window as rain began to fall, soft against the glass. The city shimmered below like circuitry, each light a pulse of human will, each dream flickering against the dark. People would call what I did revenge. They would call it ruthless. But I knew better. It wasn't about destruction. It was about recalibration. You can't build trust on condescension. You can't build a company or a family on contempt. Respect has to come first, or nothing that follows will stand. As I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed one last time. Sarah again. "All 4 founders just signed. Congratulations. You did it." I typed back, "No, we did." Then I slipped the phone into my pocket and looked out into the night, where the future waited, unpriced and infinite. Somewhere behind me, my past was collapsing quietly into lessons. And ahead, for the first time, was something pure. Not wealth, not vindication. Just freedom, earned the only way that matters, through truth.